Welcome to the British Bill of Rights of 1689 class by the Grumpy Old Vet. This class will cover the fifth genealogical document that our founders used as a base for the founding documents that created the land of the free and the home of the brave, the most blessed nation on earth. With that, let's move out. Welcome to the British Bill of Rights of 1689 class, brought to you by the Hillsdale Justice Project at Liberty Hall. Narrated by John Rutan. The Grand Remonstrance of 1641 was a critical document in the history of England, marking a significant step toward the English Civil War and the eventual execution of King Charles I. This period, spanning from 1641 through the glorious Revolution of 1688, was marked by intense political, religious, and constitutional struggles that reshaped the English monarchy and established key principles of governance, culminating in the British Bill of Rights of 1689. The Grand Remonstrance of 1641. The Grand Remonstrance was a list of grievances presented to King Charles I by the English Parliament on November 22, 1641. It was drafted primarily by John Pym and other leaders of the opposition against the king's policies. The document criticized Charles I's handling of religion, taxation, and the military, accusing him of misgovernance and asserting Parliament's rights to curb monarchical power. Key issues included the influence of Catholic advisors and Queen Henrietta Maria, the misuse of taxation, including ship money, without parliamentary approval, the king's overreach in dissolving Parliament and ruling without it, concerns over military abuses and favoritism toward royalist supporters. This document helped rally opposition to Charles I and deepen the divisions between the Royalists, Cavaliers, and Parliamentarians, Roundheads, leading directly to the outbreak of the English Civil War in 1642. The English Civil War and the execution of Charles I. The English Civil War, 1642-1651, pitted the Royalist forces loyal to Charles I against the Parliamentarians, led by figures such as Oliver Cromwell. The war resulted in decisive victories for the Parliamentarians, particularly at the Battle of Naseby in 1645. With Charles I captured, Parliament put him on trial for treason, arguing that he had acted against the interests of the English people by waging war on his own subjects. On January 30, 1649, Charles I was executed, an unprecedented act that marked the first time an English monarch had been legally tried and executed by his own government. This event led to the abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of the Commonwealth under Oliver Cromwell's rule. The Interregnum and the Restoration. The period from 1649 to 1660, known as the Interregnum, saw England governed as a republic under the leadership of Oliver Cromwell, and later his son, Richard Cromwell. However, dissatisfaction with Puritan rule, strict moral codes, and the lack of stable governance led to the restoration of the monarchy in 1660. Charles II, the son of Charles I, was invited back to rule under a constitutional framework, though tensions between the monarchy and Parliament remained. The Glorious Revolution and the British Bill of Rights. Following the death of Charles II in 1685, his brother James II ascended to the throne. James II's overt Catholicism and attempts to assert absolute power, including appointing Catholics to high positions and attempting to suspend laws without parliamentary consent, created widespread opposition. In 1688, a group of Protestant nobles invited William of Orange and his wife Mary, the Protestant daughter of James II, to assume the English throne. William landed in England with an army, and James II fled to France, marking what became known as the Glorious Revolution. This transition was largely bloodless and established several critical precedents. Parliamentary supremacy. The monarchy could no longer rule without parliamentary consent. The British Bill of Rights, 1689. This document, passed under William and Mary, outlined fundamental rights and limitations on royal power, including regular parliaments, free elections, and protections against arbitrary rule. the establishment of constitutional monarchy. The Bill of Rights ensured that the monarchy would be subject to laws passed by Parliament, effectively transitioning England from an absolute monarchy to a constitutional one. Religious tolerance. While not fully realized, the Glorious Revolution confirmed Protestant dominance in government and limited the influence of Catholicism. The legacy of the British Bill of Rights. The events from the Grand Remonstrance to the British Bill of Rights significantly shaped England's constitutional monarchy. The Bill of Rights reinforced the principle that the monarch's power was not absolute and had to be exercised in accordance with the law and the will of the people through Parliament. It established key legal principles such as the prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment, the requirement for regular parliaments, the right to petition the king without fear of retribution, the necessity of parliamentary consent for taxation and military actions. These principles became a foundation for modern republican governance, influencing later constitutional developments, including in the United States and other Western civilized nations. The British Bill of Rights of 1689 remains one of the most pivotal documents in English history, solidifying the framework for the constitutional monarchy that endures to this day. In conclusion, the Grand Remonstrance of 1641 set in motion a series of transformative events that culminated in the British Bill of Rights of 1689. The execution of Charles I demonstrated that kings were not above the law, while the Glorious Revolution ensured that future monarchs ruled with the consent of Parliament. The Bill of Rights ultimately codified these changes, making England a constitutional monarchy and establishing principles that continue to shape modern governance. William and Mary, William III, 1650 to 1702, ruled 1689 to 1702, King of England, Scotland, and Ireland. Mary II, 1662 to 1694, ruled 1689 to 1694, Queen of England, Scotland, and Ireland. William III of Orange, Stadtholder of the United Provinces, was born 4 November 1650, the son of William II of Orange, 1626 to 1650, who died shortly before the birth, and Mary Stuart, 1631 to 1660, eldest daughter of Charles I of England. Fiercely anti-French, the future William III led the Dutch in the war against France of 1672 to 1678, following the Revolution of 1672 that revived the Stadtholderate. The future Mary II was born on 30th of April 1662, the eldest daughter of James, Duke of York. James II ruled 1685 to 1688, and his first wife, Anne Hyde, 1638-1671. William and Mary were married on 4th November 1677 as part of the scheme of Thomas Osborne, 1632 to 1712, Earl of Danby, to move England out of the French orbit and to secure the Protestant succession in the wake of York's conversion to Catholicism. At the time, Mary was second in line to the throne after her father, and William was fourth. Alarmed by political developments under James II after 1685 and determined to bring England into his anti-French alliance, William offered to invade England by April 1688 if he could be assured of the necessary support. The birth of a Prince of Wales to James II's second wife on 10th June 1688, however, provided the immediate cue for action. A group of 7 Whig and Tory politicians sent William a signed invitation to come to England's rescue. William, using the rumor that the baby was not really the Queen's, but had been smuggled into the bedchamber in a warming pan as a pretext, alleged that James therefore was guilty of trying to defraud William and his wife of their inheritance rights. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 to 1689 that followed resulted in the overthrow of James II and the installment of William and Mary as joint sovereigns of England, Scotland, and Ireland, though with full regal power invested in William alone. History annotation. In response to policies that threatened to restore Catholicism in England, Parliament deposed King James II and called William of Orange from the Dutch Republic and his wife Mary, who was James's Protestant daughter, to replace him. William and Mary agreed to the Bill of Rights presented to them by Parliament, thereby acknowledging that their power came from the legislature, rather than from any concept of the divine right of kings. The Bill of Rights confirmed traditional English liberties, especially the power of Parliament to make laws and consent to taxation. It also confirmed and guaranteed freedom of speech and denied the legitimacy of cruel and unusual punishments. The Bill of Rights quickly took its place as a foundation of English constitutionalism and exercised great influence in the British North American colonies during their war for independence. Whereas the Lords Spiritual and Temporal and Commons, assembled at Westminster, lawfully, fully, and freely representing all the estates of the people of this realm, did upon the 13th day of February, in the year of our Lord 1688, present unto their majesties, then called and known by the names and style of William and Mary, Prince and Princess of Orange, being present in their proper persons, a certain declaration in writing, made by the said Lords and Commons, in the words following, whereas the late King James II, by the assistance of diverse evil counselors, judges, and ministers employed by him, did endeavor to subvert and extirpate the Protestant religion and the laws and liberties of this kingdom. 1. By assuming and exercising a power of dispensing with and suspending of laws and the execution of laws without consent of Parliament. 2. By committing and prosecuting divers worthy prelates for humbly petitioning to be excused from concurring to the same assumed power. 3. By issuing and causing to be executed a commission under the Great Seal for erecting a court, called the Court of Commissioners for Ecclesiastical Causes, whereas King James II, with the help of corrupt advisers, tried to destroy Protestantism and the kingdom's laws and freedoms. 1. By suspending laws without Parliament's consent. 2. By punishing church leaders for opposing his power. 3. By creating a court to control church matters. 4. By levying money for and to the use of the crown, by pretense of prerogative, for other time, and in other manner than the same was granted by Parliament. 5. By raising and keeping a standing army within this kingdom in time of peace, without consent of Parliament, and quartering soldiers, contrary to law. 6. By causing several good subjects, being Protestants, to be disarmed, at the same time when Papists were both armed and employed contrary to law. 7. By violating the freedom of election of members to serve in Parliament. 8. By prosecutions in the Court of King's Bench for matters and causes cognizable only in Parliament, and by divers other arbitrary and illegal courses. 4. By collecting taxes without Parliament's approval. 5. By keeping a standing army during peace and housing soldiers illegally. 6. By disarming Protestants while arming Catholics against the law. 7. By interfering with free elections to Parliament. 8. By using the King's courts to handle matters meant for Parliament and other illegal actions. 9. And whereas of late years, partial, corrupt, and unqualified persons have been returned and served on juries in trials, and particularly diverse jurors in trials for high treason, which were not freeholders. 10. An excessive bail hath been required of persons committed in criminal cases to elude the benefit of the laws made for the liberty of the subjects. 11. And excessive fines have been imposed. 12. And illegal and cruel punishments inflicted. 13. And several grants and promises made of fines and forfeitures, before any conviction or judgment against the persons upon whom the same were to be levied, all which are utterly and directly contrary to the known laws and statutes and freedom of this realm. 9. By allowing unqualified and biased jurors in trials, especially for treason. 10. By requiring excessive bail to undermine legal protections. 11. By imposing extreme fines. 12. By inflicting cruel and illegal punishments. 13. By granting fines and forfeitures before legal judgments. All these actions violated the laws and freedoms of the realm. And whereas the said late King James II, having abdicated the government, and the throne being thereby vacant, His Highness the Prince of Orange, whom it hath pleased Almighty God to make the glorious instrument of delivering this kingdom from popery and arbitrary power, did, by the advice of the Lord's spiritual and temporal and diverse principal persons of the commons, cause letters to be written to the Lord's spiritual and temporal, being Protestants, and other letters to the several counties, cities, universities, boroughs, and cinque ports, for the choosing of such persons to represent them as were of right to be sent to Parliament, to meet and sit at Westminster upon the 22nd day of January, in this year 1688, in order to such an establishment as that their religion, laws, and liberties might not again be in danger of being subverted, upon which letters elections have been accordingly made. After King James II abandoned the throne, leaving it empty, the Prince of Orange, seen as God's instrument in saving the kingdom from tyranny and Catholic rule, called for elections. Letters were sent to Protestants and communities across the kingdom to elect representatives to meet in Parliament on January 22, 1689, to secure religion, laws, and freedoms from future threats, and thereupon the said Lords spiritual and temporal and commons, pursuant to their respective letters and elections, being now assembled in a full and free representation of this nation, taking into their most serious consideration the best means for attaining the ends aforesaid, do in the first place, as their ancestors in like case have usually done, for the vindicating and asserting their ancient rights and liberties, declare. 1. That the pretended power of suspending of laws or the execution of laws by regal authority without consent of Parliament is illegal. 2. That the pretended power of dispensing with laws or the execution of laws by regal authority, as it hath been assumed and exercised of late, is illegal. The Lords and Commons, assembled as representatives of the nation, declare the following rights and liberties. 1. The King cannot suspend laws or stop their execution without Parliament's consent. 2. The King cannot change or ignore laws without Parliament's approval. 3. That the commission for erecting the late Court of Commissioners for Ecclesiastical Causes, and all other commissions and courts of like nature, are illegal and pernicious. 4. That levying money for or to the use of the Crown, by pretense of prerogative, without grant of Parliament, for longer time or in other manner than the same is or shall be granted, is illegal. 5. That it is the right of the subjects to petition the King, and all commitments and prosecutions for such petitioning are illegal. 6. That the raising or keeping a standing army within the kingdom in time of peace, unless it be with consent of Parliament, is against law. 7. That the subjects which are Protestants may have arms for their defense suitable to their conditions, and as allowed by law. 3. Creating special courts like the Court of Ecclesiastical Causes is illegal. 4. The King cannot collect taxes without Parliament's approval. 5. People have the right to petition the King, and punishing them for it is illegal. 6. Keeping a standing army in peacetime without Parliament's consent is unlawful. 7. Protestants can own arms for self-defense, as allowed by law. 8. That election of members of Parliament ought to be free. 9. That the freedom of speech and debates or proceedings in Parliament ought not to be impeached or questioned in any court or place out of Parliament. 10. That excessive bail ought not to be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. 11. That jurors ought to be duly impaneled and returned, and jurors which pass upon men in trials for high treason ought to be freeholders. 12. That all grants and promises of fines and forfeitures of particular persons before conviction are illegal and void. 13. And that for redress of all grievances, and for the amending, strengthening, and preserving of laws, parliaments ought to be held frequently. 8. Elections for Parliament must be free. 9. Parliament's debates and actions cannot be challenged outside of Parliament. 10. Excessive bail, fines, and cruel punishments are forbidden. 11. Jurors must be properly selected, and treason trial jurors must be landowners. 12. Promising fines or forfeitures before someone is convicted is illegal. 13. Parliament must meet regularly to address grievances and maintain laws. And they do claim, demand, and insist upon all and singular the premises as their undoubted rights and liberties, and that no declarations, judgments, doings, or proceedings to the prejudice of the people in any of the said premises ought in any wise to be drawn hereafter into consequence or example, to which demand of their rights they are particularly encouraged by the declaration of His Highness the Prince of Orange as being the only means for obtaining a full redress and remedy therein. Having therefore an entire confidence that His said Highness the Prince of Orange will perfect the deliverance so far advanced by him, and will still preserve them from the violation of their rights, which they have here asserted, and from all other attempts upon their religion, rights, and liberties, the said Lord Spiritual and Temporal and Commons, assembled at Westminster, do resolve that William and Mary, Prince and Princess of Orange, be declared King and Queen of England, France, and Ireland, and the dominions thereunto belonging, to hold the crown and royal dignity of the said kingdoms and dominions to them, the said Prince and Princess, during their lives and the life of the survivor to them, and that the sole and full exercise of the regal power be only in and executed by the said Prince of Orange in the names of the said Prince and Princess during their joint lives, and after their deceases, the said crown and royal dignity of the same kingdoms and dominions to be to the heirs of the body of the said princess, and for default of such issue to the Princess Anne of Denmark and the heirs of her body, and for default of such issue to the heirs of the body of the said Prince of Orange. And the Lords Spiritual and Temporal and Commons do pray the said Prince and Princess to accept the same accordingly, and that the oaths hereafter mentioned be taken by all persons of whom the oaths have allegiance and supremacy might be required by law instead of them, and that the said oaths of allegiance and supremacy be abrogated. The people insist that their rights and freedoms are absolute, and that nothing should be done to take them away now or in the future. They are encouraged in this belief by Prince William of Orange, who has pledged to help restore and protect their rights. Because of this trust, the lords, clergy, and representatives in Parliament decide that William and Mary should be declared King and Queen of England, France, and Ireland. They will rule together, but William will have full control of the monarchy while both are alive. After they pass away, the throne will go first to Mary's children. If she has none, it will go to her sister, Princess Anne, and her children. If Anne also has no heirs, it will go to William's children. Finally, Parliament declares that all officials must take new oaths of loyalty, replacing the old ones. I, A.B., do sincerely promise and swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to their Majesties King William and Queen Mary. So help me God. I, A.B., do swear that I do from my heart abhor, detest, and abjure as impious and heretical that damnable doctrine and position that princes excommunicated or deprived by the Pope, or any authority of the See of Rome, may be deposed or murdered by their subjects, or any other whatsoever. And I do declare that no foreign prince, person, prelate, state, or potentate hath or ought to have any jurisdiction, power, superiority, preeminence, or authority ecclesiastical or spiritual within this realm. So help me God. Oath of subjects and Parliament. I swear to be loyal and faithful to King William and Queen Mary. Oath of the King and Queen. I reject and condemn the belief that the Pope or Rome can depose or harm rulers. I also declare no foreign authority has any power in this kingdom. 1. Upon which their said majesties did accept the crown and royal dignity of the kingdoms of England, France, and Ireland, and the dominions thereunto belonging, according to the resolution and desire of the said lords and commons contained in the said declaration. 2. And thereupon their majesties were pleased that the said lords spiritual and temporal and commons, being the two houses of Parliament, should continue to sit, and with their majesties' royal concurrence make effectual provision for the settlement of the religion, laws, and liberties of this kingdom, so that the same for the future might not be in danger again of being subverted, to which the said lords spiritual and temporal and commons did agree and proceed to act accordingly. 1. King William and Queen Mary accepted the crown of England, France, Ireland, and its territories as requested by Parliament. 2. King William and Queen Mary allowed Parliament to continue meeting and work with them to secure the kingdom's religion, laws, and freedoms, ensuring they wouldn't be threatened again. Parliament agreed and took action. 3. Now, in pursuance of the premises, the said Lords Spiritual and Temporal and Commons in Parliament assembled, for the ratifying, confirming, and establishing the said declaration, and the articles, clauses, matters, and things therein contained, by the force of a law made in due form by authority of Parliament, do pray that it may be declared and enacted, that all and singular the rights and liberties asserted and claimed in the said declaration are the true, ancient, and indubitable rights and liberties of the people of this kingdom, and so shall be esteemed, allowed, adjudged, deemed, and taken to be, and that all and every the particulars aforesaid shall be firmly and strictly holden and observed as they are expressed in the said declaration, and all officers and ministers whatsoever shall serve their majesties and their successors according to the same in all times to come. 3. Parliament requests that the rights and liberties declared earlier be confirmed as the true and unquestionable rights of the people, to be respected and upheld forever. All government officials must serve according to these rights in the future. 4. And the said Lords, Spiritual and Temporal, and Commons, seriously considering how it hath pleased Almighty God, in his marvelous providence and merciful goodness to this nation, to provide and preserve their said Majesties' royal persons most happily to reign over us, upon the throne of their ancestors, for which they render unto him from the bottom of their hearts their humblest thanks and praises, do truly, firmly, assuredly, and in the sincerity of their hearts think, and do hereby recognize, acknowledge, and declare that King James II, having abdicated the government, and their majesties having accepted the crown and royal dignity aforesaid, their said majesties did become, were, are, and of right ought to be, by the laws of this realm, our sovereign liege, lord, and lady, King and Queen of England, France and Ireland, and the dominions thereunto belonging, in and to whose princely persons the royal state, crown, and dignity of the same realms, with all honors, styles, titles, regalities, prerogatives, powers, jurisdictions, and authorities to the same belonging and appertaining, are most fully, rightfully, and entirely invested and incorporated, united, and annexed. 4. Parliament acknowledges and gives thanks to God for King William and Queen Mary, recognizing them as the rightful sovereigns of England, France, Ireland, and their territories, with all the powers and authority that come with the crown. 5. And for preventing all questions and divisions in this realm, by reason of any pretended titles to the crown, and for preserving a certainty in the succession thereof, in and upon which the unity, peace, tranquillity, and safety of this nation doth under God wholly consist and depend, the said Lords Spiritual and Temporal, and Commons do beseech their majesties that it may be enacted, established, and declared, that the crown and regal government of the said kingdoms and dominions, with all and singular the premises thereunto belonging and appertaining, shall be and continue to their said majesties, and the survivor of them, during their lives, and the life of the survivor of them, and that the entire, perfect, and full exercise of the regal power and government be only in and executed by His Majesty, in the names of both their majesties during their joint lives, and after their deceases, the said crown and premises shall be and remain to the heirs of the body of Her Majesty, and for default of such issue, to Her Royal Highness the Princess Anne of Denmark, and the heirs of her body, and for default of such issue, to the heirs of the body of His said Majesty, and thereunto the said Lords Spiritual and Temporal, and Commons do, in the name of all the people aforesaid, most humbly and faithfully submit themselves, their heirs and posterities forever, and do faithfully promise that they will stand to, maintain, and defend their said majesties, and also the limitation and succession of the crown herein specified and contained to the utmost of their powers, with their lives and estates, against all persons whatsoever that shall attempt anything to the contrary. 5. To avoid disputes over the throne and ensure the nation's unity, peace, and safety, Parliament requests that the crown remain with King William and Queen Mary during their lifetimes. After their deaths, the crown will pass to Queen Mary's heirs, then to Princess Anne and her heirs, and if needed, to King William's heirs. Parliament pledges to defend this succession with their lives and estates. 6. And whereas it hath been found by experience that it is inconsistent with the safety and welfare of this Protestant kingdom to be governed by a popish prince, or by any king or queen marrying a papist, the said lords spiritual and temporal, and commons, do further pray that it may be enacted, that all and every person and persons that is, are, or shall be reconciled to, or shall hold communion with, the see or church of Rome, or shall profess the popish religion, or shall marry a papist, shall be excluded, and be forever incapable to inherit, possess, or enjoy the crown and government of this realm, and Ireland, and the dominions thereunto belonging, or any part of the same, or to have, use, or exercise any regal power, authority, or jurisdiction within the same. And in all and every such case or cases the people of these realms shall be and are hereby absolved of their allegiance. And the said crown and government shall from time to time descend to and be enjoyed by such person or persons, being Protestants, as should have inherited and enjoyed the same, in case the said person or persons so reconciled, holding communion, or professing, or marrying as aforesaid, were naturally dead. 6. To protect the Protestant kingdom, Parliament requests that anyone who becomes Catholic, marries a Catholic, or holds Catholic beliefs be barred from inheriting or ruling the throne. In such cases, the crown will pass to the next Protestant in line. 7. And that every king and queen of this realm, who at any time hereafter shall come to succeed in the imperial crown of this kingdom, shall, on the first day of the meeting of the first Parliament, next after his or her coming to the crown, sitting in his or her throne in the House of Peers, in the presence of the Lords and Commons therein assembled, or at his or her coronation, before such person or persons who shall administer the coronation oath to him or her, at the time of his or her taking the said oath, which shall first happen, make, subscribe, and audibly repeat the declaration mentioned in the statute made in the 30th year of the reign of King Charles II, intituled An Act for the more effectual preserving the King's person and government, by disabling papists from sitting in either House of Parliament. But if it shall happen that such king or queen, upon his or her succession to the crown of this realm, shall be under the age of 12 years, then every such king or queen shall make, subscribe, and audibly repeat the said declaration at his or her coronation, or the first day of the meeting of the first Parliament as aforesaid, which shall first happen after such king or queen shall have attained the said age of 12 years. 7. Any future king or queen must, upon ascending the throne, publicly declare and repeat the oath from the 30th year of King Charles II's reign, confirming they are not Catholic. If under 12 years old, they must do so upon reaching that age or at their coronation. 8. All which their majesties are contented and pleased shall be declared, enacted, and established by authority of this present Parliament, and shall stand, remain, and be the law of this realm forever. And the same are by their said majesties, by and with the advice and consent of the Lords spiritual and temporal, and Commons in Parliament assembled, and by the authority of the same, declared, enacted, and established accordingly. 8. The laws and decisions made by this Parliament, with the consent of the King and Queen, are declared final, and will remain law forever. 9. And be it further declared and enacted by the authority aforesaid, that from and after this present session of Parliament, no dispensation by non-obstante of, or to any statute or any part thereof, shall be allowed, but that the same shall be held void and of no effect, except a dispensation be allowed of in such statute, and except in such cases as shall be specially provided for by one or more bill or bills to be passed during this present session of Parliament. 9. From now on, no law can be ignored or altered unless specifically allowed by the law itself or a new law passed in this session of Parliament. 10. Provided that no charter or grant or pardon granted before the 23rd day of October in the year of our Lord 1689 shall be any ways impeached or invalidated by this act, but that the same shall be and remain of the same force and effect in law, and no other, than as if this act had never been made. 10. Any charters, grants, or pardons given before October 23rd, 1689 remain valid and unchanged by this act. Summary of the British Bill of Rights of 1689 in plain English. The British Bill of Rights of 1689 was a critical document that established limits on the powers of the monarchy, affirmed certain rights for Parliament, and clarified the principles of governance in England. Here's the breakdown in simple terms. 1. Parliament's power. The monarchy could no longer suspend or change laws without Parliament's consent. 2. Freedom of elections. Elections for Parliament had to be free and fair. 3. Freedom of speech. Members of Parliament were granted the right to speak freely without interference or punishment. 4. Rights to petition. The people could petition the king without fear of retribution. 5. No cruel punishments. Prohibits cruel or excessive punishment and ensures fair bail and fines. 6. Religious freedom. Ensures that only Protestants can inherit the throne, protecting England's Protestant religion from Catholic influence. 7. Right to bear arms. Protestants were allowed to possess arms for self-defense. 8. No standing army in peacetime. The king could not maintain a standing army in England during times of peace without Parliament's consent. 9. Parliament's role. The bill reaffirms that Parliament must meet regularly to protect the liberties of the people. Historical significance. The British Bill of Rights was a pivotal moment in English history. It marked the end of the absolute power of the monarchy and laid the groundwork for a constitutional monarchy. It also codified important principles of governance, the rule of law, and the protection of individual rights. It directly resulted from the Glorious Revolution of 1688, which saw the overthrow of King James II and the ascension of William and Mary to the throne. The bill also curtailed the monarch's ability to interfere in Parliament's decisions, marking the shift of power from the monarchy to the elected government, or Parliament. Influence on the founders of the United States. The American founders were heavily influenced by the British Bill of Rights, particularly as they sought to define and protect individual freedoms in their new government. Key elements of the Bill of Rights resonated with the ideas that would later appear in the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights. 1. Checks on power. The limitation on royal power in the British Bill of Rights mirrored the founders' desire to limit executive power in the U.S. The idea that power should be shared and checked was reflected in the structure of the U.S. government with its separation of powers and system of checks and balances, U.S. Constitution, Article 1 through 3. 2. Freedom of speech and debate. The freedom for Parliament members to speak without interference influenced the American First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of speech and the press, U.S. Bill of Rights, First Article. 3. Right to petition. The British bill guaranteed the right to petition the monarch, which influenced the American guarantee of the right to petition the government, U.S. Bill of Rights, First Article. 4. No cruel or unusual punishment. The prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment in the British Bill of Rights is reflected in the 8th Article of the U.S. Bill of Rights. 5. Right to bear arms. The provision allowing Protestants to keep arms for their defense influenced the U.S. Second Amendment, which secures the right to keep and bear arms, U.S. Bill of Rights, Second Article. 6. Parliamentary sovereignty. The British Bill of Rights affirmed Parliament's role as the ultimate authority in governance. This concept of a governing body of elected representatives was foundational to the creation of the U.S. Congress, U.S. Constitution, Article 1. 7. Religious freedom. The exclusion of Catholics from the throne in England was based on fears of religious influence. In contrast, the U.S. Constitution enshrined religious freedom as a fundamental right, U.S. Bill of Rights, First Article. Juxtaposition with U.S. documents, separation of powers. The British Bill of Rights sought to limit the monarch's powers by affirming the role of Parliament, while the U.S. Constitution structured a more formal separation of powers among three branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Religious freedom. The British Bill of Rights reflected a Protestant-centric view, excluding Catholics from the throne, whereas the U.S. Bill of Rights adopted a principle of religious liberty for all, regardless of faith. U.S. Bill of Rights, First Article. Right to petition and freedom of speech. Both documents emphasize the right to petition and freedom of speech, but the U.S. Bill of Rights went further to ensure that these rights could not be infringed upon by any government branch, creating a broader foundation for civil liberties. U.S. Bill of Rights, First Article. No standing army. The British Bill of Rights prohibited a standing army in peacetime without Parliament's consent, an idea that also influenced the U.S. Constitution's checks on military power. U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. Overall, the British Bill of Rights of 1689 served as a vital stepping stone for the political philosophy of the U.S. founders. It helped establish the importance of individual rights, the rule of law, and the separation of powers, ideas that would become cornerstones of American governance. That concludes the 6th class in this series on the British Bill of Rights of 1689. I hope you found this information helpful and entertaining. I will see you in Class 7, where we will go over the American history from 1750 through 1776. Fall out!